Mother-in-law wants my husband to get his stepsister pregnant. My mother-in-law wants my husband to impregnate his lesbian stepsister. Mother-in-law cannot accept that my husband and I are not having children. She is so obsessed with getting a grandchild that she has made very disgusting statements. I am extremely uncomfortable with her saying these things, especially in front of everybody. She has started whining about who is going to give her a grandchild. Keep in mind, husband is an only child, so this is like the third or fourth time she has brought up that my husband should provide sperm for his stepsister to have a baby. She literally says, get a turkey baster, and you two go in the bedroom. I don't know why she thinks this is appropriate to say. It's very awkward for me, my husband, his stepsister, and her partner. The stepsister doesn't want this to happen either. I just don't know what to say or do at this point. She brought this up repeatedly at Thanksgiving. How does she not realize that is weird? TLDR, mother-in-law wants to use a turkey baster filled with my husband's sperm so that he can get his stepsister pregnant. My mother just tried to climb in my house through a ground floor window. How do we escape her? A year ago, Mom came to visit on Mother's Day, and presented me with a key to her new house, which was a 5-minute drive from us. Her house before this was a 5-hour drive. I had no idea she was moving until that moment. We've neglected to set boundaries before now. The reason we struggle with boundaries is we've never really had to set them, as before this we only had dear husband's mother in our lives, and she was a just yes, very respectful, never overstepped, and constantly checked with us before doing anything. Mother-in-law passed away suddenly towards the end of my pregnancy, and my father passed away 6 months before my mother moved here. Because mother-in-law was so great with boundaries, we never had to set them. So once Mom moved here, we didn't really know how to tell my newly widowed mother that we needed space. However, over the year she's been nearby, things have escalated massively with my mom, and I've found myself having to tell her off more than once. Weird role reversal, due to how she's talked to Slash about dear daughter or dear husband. The other day my mom pierced my daughter's ears because dear daughter looks like a little boy, according to her, which she really doesn't. She just looks more like her father than me. So we were thinking about moving. We had numerous conversations about it with her, saying that we weren't going to change our daughter's appearance, and then we left Mom alone with our daughter for a few hours while we looked at a preschool, and she pierced dear daughter's ears. I kicked Mom out, and changed the locks so she couldn't get in. We took the piercings out, no east feet, as they were done with a piercing gun, and were therefore really tight, and the holes sealed overnight. Mom has come by the house multiple times since we kicked her out asking to see us, and we've ignored her. Then today I heard a car pull up, assumed it was her, and went back to doing laundry. Then I hear something fall, and dear daughter crying. I sprinted in the direction of the noise, and Mom had pulled the window open, and was trying to climb in. Room was ground floor facing the street. When I see her, she doesn't freeze or apologize or explain. She instead tells me that dear husband is keeping me, and dear daughter from her, and he's working against her. I yanked the window shut, and locked it, and called dear husband. I can't believe I was dumb enough to leave it unlocked. But never in my wildest dreams did I think my mother would try and clamber through a window into my living room. Dear husband has suggested moving. His job pays well, we have some savings, and the company he works for has enough branches throughout our country, and several other countries, that if we needed to move we could. And I was planning on transitioning back into the workplace this September, when dear daughter goes off to preschool. We've looked into options, and it's possible, and we could make it work. There are places we could go with more preschools, including ones with security, more job opportunities for me, and there are a few where there's a lower cost of living, and dear husband could earn more, and he says it can all be sorted with a transfer request, so long as there's a position available. Also, I have already called the non-emergency line, and have been told that 1, where we live piercing is an assault, and 2, restraining orders will have our home address on it. We think moving is the smart option. However, if she finds us, it's worthless. Does anyone have experience with getting far away from their toxic mother-in-law without being tracked down? Toxic mother-in-law gets her comeuppance. I've posted a bit about my toxic mother-in-law over the last couple of weeks, but for anyone unfamiliar, she was my lecturer when I was at university. Mother-in-law hated that I was dating her adopted son, biological nephew, since she found out about us. When we first told her we were dating, she tried to kill me via allergy, another story for another day. And after she found out I was pregnant, she stalked us, impersonated me, and broke into our flat. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. She made our lives hell, to the extent where we no longer felt safe in our own home, and my fiancé and I had to move across the country to escape her. We've been living in our new place for a little under a week. The baby is due in a couple of months, and everything is mostly ready. We've deactivated our social media, created new emails, and changed our numbers. Only a few friends and relatives from the town she lives in, which we left, have our new numbers. We had to leave our entire lives, and everyone we knew and loved behind, while I was 7 months pregnant, because we couldn't trust her around our baby. On Monday, an email was sent from the dean to mother-in-law's graduating students saying mother-in-law was being considered for a promotion, from lecturer to head of department, and they wanted to hear from her students first. The aim of this was to receive glowing recommendations to give to the board. This was not the result. As I changed my email, I hadn't seen this. One of my friends who had my new number, and was on the course with me, did see the email, and on Tuesday he gave my new number to the dean, saying that he would only give her the number in person, on paper, and only if she agreed to ring when she was alone, and throw out the paper, and erase it from the logs after. If she was calling from a university phone, then the number would go on the call logs that were accessible by all members of staff. But he assured her that this was something she'd want to hear before promoting mother-in-law. So I got this call from the dean on Tuesday. She told me what was going on. My friend hadn't had time to get in touch before she rang, and she asked me why my friend thought I should speak to her. I told her everything. I started 2 years ago, when I met mother-in-law's son, the man who would become my fiancé, and the father of my child. I told her about mother-in-law poisoning me via allergy after finding out about me, and her son, and the EpiPen incident. I told her about the outside-of-class harassment I received post-pregnancy announcement, impersonating me, crashing GP appointments, breaking in, etc. I told her about the in-class harassment, telling me to break up with my fiancé, stopping lectures until I left, throwing out my food and drink, trying to reschedule exams, and more. I told her about the last time I saw mother-in-law in person, when she tried to hit me while I was 7 months pregnant with her grandchild. I told her about having to move away. I was careful not to give a location or distance, and filing a restraining order to escape mother-in-law. I thought the uni were made aware of the row, but apparently not. Fiancé then arrived home from work, and when I told him what was happening, he was all too eager to chime in with stuff I forgot, copying keys, punching the landlord, canceling orders, going through our things. He also told the dean about the abuse he got from her growing up. We also gave the dean the names of people willing to support our story, as well as some dates, times, and locations of on-campus incidents. I'd made a note of a few of them, so she could pull CCTV from the campus security recordings. Fiancé also told her the story of one of his cousins, mother-in-law's bio kid, who got close with a guy on mother-in-law's course, but the guy was told to break up with her by mother-in-law with a thinly veiled threat against his academic career. We also told the dean about mother-in-law telling me to break up with my fiancé, and vice versa, so she could better maintain professionalism. The dean was horrified. She had me and my fiancé record a video, where we said everything all over again. From the top, we made sure the video had nothing to identify location, and we were assured mother-in-law would never see it. We also sent her all the proof we had alongside it. This was all forwarded to the board on Wednesday and Thursday. She asked my friend for the number again, and just called me for the second time, telling me that the board unanimously agreed this was grounds for mother-in-law's dismissal. They said that while the outside of uni events weren't really their business, they go towards her character, and the fact that as department head, she would represent the department, whether she was on the clock or not. They said even without this, the events that happened inside of uni alone, stopping lectures, telling me to dump my fiancé, telling that other guy to leave her daughter alone, throwing out my stuff, seeking special treatment on grounds of nepotism, were all abuses of power, and enough to justify mother-in-law's dismissal. They asked me why I hadn't filed charges, and I said all I'd gain from filing charges is mother-in-law staying away from me, and the row, and moving away has the same effect. Plus, as it's exam season, my tutor work is really taking off and I don't have the time to go through a whole court case, and I'll have even less time once the baby arrives. The baby is due in about 8 weeks, and mother-in-law has already caused me enough stress. Tomorrow, in the meeting where mother-in-law is fully expecting to be told she got her promotion, the dean is now going to give her a week to hand in her resignation. If she refuses, she will be fired. If she does not hand in her resignation, she will be fired. She will not be getting a reference. The only reason she is being given the option to resign is that she has worked at this university for nearly a decade. But if she so much as raises her voice in the meeting tomorrow, she will be fired. Security will be present for the meeting, in case she tries anything. Meanwhile, the friends we left behind aren't hesitating to tell anyone who will listen all about what mother-in-law did during the course of mine and my fiancé's relationship. There's not a single soul left in the town who trusts her or will take her side if she tries to fight back, not even her husband, who told us that now all their kids are over 18. He will be initiating divorce proceedings. I don't feel even a little bit bad. I know there's a chance I went too far, but I didn't lie, or embellish anything. I just gave the dean the facts as they are. Everything is 100% true, and while it was me who told the dean, I see this as mother-in-law's actions having consequences. Mother-in-law has more than enough money to pay for herself for the foreseeable future. She owns her home, her husband's name is not on the deed, and she bought it before they got married, so she will get the house in the divorce as it's not technically a shared asset, or one acquired during their marriage. She will have a roof over her head, and money in her bank account, and if she wanted to she could get another job, just probably not one as a lecturer. Update. The dean said the firing was happening last week. She said that if mother-in-law didn't present as a danger to us to her, e.g. if mother-in-law lost her cool, and yelled something like "this is all OP's fault," then the dean couldn't break confidentiality, and as we've not heard from her since, we can only assume that she took it well, or as well as possible. We've read your comments/replies, and we've talked, and done some thinking, and we've agreed to look into legal options. We are still not totally sure about pursuing a court case, but we realize that mother-in-law isn't just going to let this go, and she won't be willing to just leave us alone. We also weren't informed that the row would have our address, and my fiancé was also hesitant because despite her actions, mother-in-law did, for the most part, raise him. We looked into it, and it doesn't look like she actually adopted him, so that's something. We're gathering all the evidence we have against her, plus anything the dean, landlord, or anyone else still has, and we're meeting a lawyer later this week as we agree that our personal safety, and the safety of our child should come first. My mother-in-law believes that crystals will heal my dead baby. DW, miscarriage. Trigger warning, miscarriage. My mother-in-law has always been cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but in a cute way. Like super affectionate, believes in the healing power of crystals, gets the family together to sing Kumbaya around a campfire around Christmas, that kind of thing. Recently though, I think one of her crystals got lodged in her brain, and is turning it to mush. I am just gonna explain the most recent thing, and maybe I'll go back and tell past stories, like the time she put oregano essential oil in someone's salsa to cure their athlete's foot, and made them super sick. So I was pregnant. I am not anymore. My feelings around this are complicated because I didn't want to be pregnant, but miscarriage still sucks. I am still processing. Dear husband doesn't talk to his mom if he can help it. Not because she did anything, he just doesn't like her brand of hippie crazy. His childhood sucked, and he leaves it to his brother to do any communication. How she found out that A, I was pregnant, and B, now I am not sure. I didn't tell anyone other than my mom and best friend. So her stopping by my work to give me a hug was unexpected. I work in a really informal office, so it wasn't a big deal. Well, that's until she slipped something in my pocket and started chanting. Oh yeah, chanting. Like babble nonsense in a melodic tone. What the F? I tried to stop her, usher her out, anything, but she just kept going. After 20 to 30 seconds, she stopped and said that should do the trick. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I asked her, "This freaking loon, the baby, I healed her. Keep the crystals," she used some super special magic rock name for it, "on you at all times, and everything will be fine." And with that she walked away. Everyone was too shocked to say or do anything, including me. Needless to say, I took an early break, and called dear husband to deal with his mom. Personally, I am feeling crushed. I don't want kids, but this really hurt. It's like it was such a trivial quick fix for her, and I don't know what she is gonna do when there is no baby in 6 months. She does this bat crap stuff all the time. This isn't even the worst, just what I had to deal with recently. F me. I'm glad my mother-in-law's life is falling apart. She deserves it. So, a bit of backstory is in order. I met my wife in high school, and had known her for a while before we started dating. Before we were romantically involved, she would tell me about how strict and controlling her mother was. She'd take her phone away thinking she was hooking up with some boy, and didn't allow her to officially date until she was 16. We were together before that, but weren't able to do anything outside of school until then. When she finally told her, she wasn't pleased. Of course, I had made the first attempt to introduce myself to her while at one of my wife's school drama plays, and she simply scolded me, refused to shake my hand, and went straight to threatening me when, up to this point, I had given her zero reason to do so. Sure, I had expected some sort of tough facade as most parents would give, but she straight up told me she'd hang me on the tree behind her house if she caught us doing the nasty. Okay, whatever, right? Her mother's boyfriend, however, was cool with me. He always had that logical sense that my wife was of age to date, and so long as we did so responsibly, there was no problem. We had great talks together, and he never gave me an issue whatsoever. He wanted us to enjoy our youth in the capacity that we could. A year into dating, I finally got permission from her mother to take her out on a date, so I took her to have dinner with my parents at outhouse, which was on the street over from her house. Her mother strictly ordered her to be back by 10 p.m. sharp. We ended up having a good time, a great good conversation, everything that I had hoped for as a first impression with my parents. Then we looked at the time, 9:58. Crap. We rushed her back to her house, and got there roughly 10 minutes late. Her mother lost it. My mother tried to explain the situation, but her mother yelled at both her and me, called my mother a whore, and slammed the door in our faces after pulling my girlfriend back into her house. I got a call that night where her mother told me I wasn't allowed to see her anymore, and said that if she found out that we were still dating, she'd send her off to boarding school. How cliché, not to be mean, or anything, but she was too poor for that, so it was a petty threat. Yet, it remained possible for her to send her to another family relative in another state or county. Anyway, she and I decided to continue our relationship in secret for months, up until her birthday came. It was her first birthday with me as her boyfriend, but I couldn't obviously do anything. Her selfish mother didn't even throw her a birthday party or give her a cake for that matter. So, I went out, and bought her gifts with what money I was able to save up, and walked 6 miles to her grandmother's house. 6 miles. In the middle of summer, under the blazing sun, she would visit her grandmother's house during her biological dad's weekend, so I dropped it off there hoping that she would find her presents. Her grandmother thought it was a sweet gesture, and ensured that her granddaughter would receive them. She did, but absent-mindedly brought those gifts back home where her mother saw them, and confiscated them. Her mother called me that night, and pretty much told me that she'd blow my brains out if I dared approach her daughter ever again. I know you guys are probably thinking, why the F are you still with this chick with her crazy-ass mom? Well, it was because I genuinely cared about her. I know, super cliché, but I did. None of this was her fault. She shouldn't have to suffer and be miserable because her narcissistic mother tried to run me out. I know I was young at the time, but crap, I cared a lot about this girl. I cared enough to go against her mother. I didn't let her stop me. I still continued to talk to her and date her throughout high school. Eventually, I guess her mother's boyfriend calmed her down and got her to accept the fact that we were still dating. So, she told her daughter one night that she was allowed to see me again, but that I'm not allowed to take her out anymore. All dates were strictly with them or in their house. Of course, I didn't believe it for a second. When I was at their house, she'd always smile and pretend to treat me like a son, but I saw through her bullcrap. Alas, I played along, out of respect for the girl that would end up being my wife. I stuck around and played nice. Then, graduation came. I left for boot camp that summer to go into the Marines, and her mother was overjoyed. She told her daughter things like maybe now you can concentrate on what's important while she went off to college. But, like the old romance story goes, I didn't stop seeing her. I wrote her letters, I called when I could, and she stayed true to me the entire time. I never had any reason to distrust her. Then, I made the young foolhardy decision to get married. At 18, both of our mothers were furious, but I didn't give a crap. I was in love, and so was she. Then, I ended up getting stationed in Japan for 3 years, and she came along to live with me during that time. We got to explore half the world together, and in time, I was able to save up enough money for us to go on our honeymoon in Rome, Italy. It was the top place on her list of places she wanted to visit. I'm happy to say I made the dream come true for her. Meanwhile, her mother ended up marrying that cool-headed boyfriend, and he ended up starting a very successful trucking business. They got a big house, moved out of the small townhouse they had lived in, and he was able to give his wife everything she ever wanted. Cars, motorcycles, the works. The American dream. They then moved to Florida so that he could be closer to his family because his mother was going through some difficult health issues, and that's where their problems started. She quit her work at Hair Cuttery because she didn't feel comfortable making less money than her husband. So, she wanted to go work for him, as a truck driver. She went to get her CDL, commercial driver's license. However, while she was at the trucking school for a month, as her husband found out, she cheated on him, multiple times, with multiple men, sometimes with several of them at once. He was livid, heartbroken, but, most of all, angry. The marriage had been on the rocks for a while leading up to this after they moved down to Florida, but never to the point that he considered either one of them capable of resorting to cheating. Then, it all began to fall apart for her. They're going through the preliminary stages of the divorce right now, but he's taking virtually everything from her. He's fighting to take custody of their son, the house, the cars, nearly everything. The main reason he's being this ruthless was because she purposefully ignored her kids, refusing to call them or even message them during the course of her time at the trucking school. She stated that she was busy studying, when in reality she was committing heinous acts of adultery. And also, because she tried to hide it, she deleted all evidence that it happened off her phone so that he would never find out. But the phone had synced with the cloud when she took the pictures, texted the messages. All of it got uploaded on there. And their son's phone for gaming purposes was synced to the cloud as well. He must have pressed something that caused the cloud to download all that information to the phone, and he brought it up to his father, who made the shocking discovery. My wife's disgusted by what her mother's done. Her husband is a good man with a good heart who gave her the entire world. But it was never enough for her. And I had tried to think that maybe she had changed into a good person after all, but it wasn't true. I might be a bad person for thinking that she deserves it. Maybe she doesn't. Humans make mistakes. But karma sucks, and it was finally time to pay up. I don't need to add this, but she also frequently emotionally and mentally abused her children. All of them have been shaped by some way by her abuse. The cheating occurred in April, and the actual discovery that it was with multiple men was recently. The husband had thought it was just one man up until now. I ended up leaving the Marines to pursue my education, getting a part-time job while my wife found a well-paying job with the local government. Since our return to the States, we've become much closer to my parents, who have fully accepted my wife as their daughter-in-law. Our distance from her parents, who are in Florida, has greatly benefited us, and spared us a great deal of grief. I'm 24 now, and she's 25, and we've made the decision to finally start having children. We're hoping, and praying we can be blessed with such a gift, so that we can break this cycle of narcissism, and treat them better than her mother treated her. TLDR, wife's mom treated our relationship like crap in the dating years. After we got married, she cheated on her husband, who had given her everything, with multiple men. He's taking everything from her now. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.